This is the Digital Marketing Punkcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the active resistance against bad digital marketing. Every episode I try to help you clear up the mysteries surrounding this digital voodoo that we call digital marketing. This is the Digital Marketing Punkcast and I am DM Punk. This is episode number... where are we? Is this 19? Do you know what? It's been so long since I've actually done one that I can't even remember. This is episode 19, and today we're actually talking. I give a little introduction to marketing today. This episode was recorded, well, this is a complicated one as well. It's recorded in October of 2019. However, the actual interview was recorded in May of 2019, a long time ago. Big differences going on. You may have noticed that I've actually not been around for a while. Apologies for that. However, due to one thing or another, for some reason I've not got around to actually doing a recording. So now I'm here. I'm doing the recording again. I was going to change to a different podcast. I was going to make a whole load of changes. I didn't do it. But don't worry. We are sticking with the Digital Marketing Punkcast. I'm going to be doing my thing as per usual. I'm going to continue on. I know a lot of people will probably be a little relieved about that. Some people will probably hate that, but who cares? So we're going to carry on. I apologize sincerely for not doing an episode in so long, but I'm going to try and get back on top of with it now. I'm on old equipment today, which is not ideal, but my other equipment, I'm in a different location today. I'm not in my usual studio. I'm in the office. It's all just so very different. But it's okay, because now we're here. Today, I have Roger Edwards on the episode. Now, Roger and I actually went on to Roger's podcast, which was awesome. I enjoyed doing that, and I did that way back earlier on in this year, and it was an awesome time to be on. I went on talking about digital marketing and being all punk about it and stuff like that, which was really super cool. And I invited him onto my podcast because he goes around and does so many talks and speaking events about marketing in general, and he has a really good way of sort of painting a beautiful picture of marketing in general. And I thought, do you know what? I've not been here for a while. I had this recording in my back pocket for so long. Like I said, I recorded it back in May, and I haven't really had the opportunity in which to go away and actually, put the podcast together. But I thought, I've been away for so long. This is a perfect opportunity for all the new listeners that are listening to this episode. Maybe it's the first one they're listening to, which I'm sure there will be. For all the listeners that have continued on with me and have been missing me, he laughs, for this long. I thought, well, I'm going to sort of have a clean slate, okay? I'm going to wipe it clean. And I'm going to say, right, this is the Introduction to Marketing by the fantastic Roger Edwards. And we're going to be talking about marketing in general. We're not going to be specifically talking about digital marketing per se. We're just going to be talking about marketing in general and how to think about marketing. And that's the important bit. It's how to think about marketing from a very top level way. And I think it's really important that we do that, because sometimes we can get really involved in the nitty gritty, the tools, the techniques, the software and all that kind of stuff. And actually, if you start thinking about it more frequently on a top level basis, why are we doing this? What is actually going to connect with people and link up with people? Then it's really important to do that. So this is my reminder, okay, of why we do all things digital marketing. So I'm not going to waste your time anymore. This is my interview with Roger Edwards, and we're going to be talking all about marketing. Okay, so joining me here today is Roger Edwards. Roger, introduce yourself to the world and the audience of the Digital Marketing Punkcast.
Hey, Tom, thanks very much for inviting me on your show. I'm Roger Edwards, and I always describe myself as a marketing bloke from Edinburgh. Also, I'm a public speaker as well. Give you a little bit of background about myself. I was born in Blackpool, in the north of England, although I've lived now in Edinburgh in Scotland for getting on for 26 years. After I grew up in Blackpool and spent quite a lot of time messing about on Blackpool Pleasure Beach, I went to university, did all the usual studying, and I'd always wanted to do marketing as a career. Ever since I was at school, there was this fabulous teacher called Mr. Plows, who probably didn't teach us much English. He just liked to read books to us. And I always remember him reading a book which was called The Hidden Persuaders. And this book was written in the 1950s and 1960s. It's possibly one of the earliest books ever written about advertising. And even though I was like a 12-year-old kid at school and probably would have been much more interested in him reading The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings or something like that, this book was absolutely fascinating, and it sort of sowed a seed in my head. And I thought, when I grow up, I want to do marketing. So I sort of did a marketing related degree, went into a marketing department within a financial services company, actually, and effectively spent the next 25 years working my way up the various levels of different financial services companies in marketing roles. Started off as a marketing assistant, became a product manager, a marketing manager, got myself up to marketing director, and even spent some time as managing director at one point, although I guess I was the archetypal example of the Peter principle, being promoted above your level of competence. Never really enjoyed the managing director role. It took me too far away from the customer. I ended up spending too much time getting embroiled in compliance and regulatory stuff. I was much more comfortable looking at the customer need and developing products and marketing campaigns to focus on the customer. And I guess towards all the way through my career, and this was sort of embellished by the fact that I was working in a financial services company. And most of your listeners, I'm sure, Tom, will realize that financial services can be quite a dull industry, but it can also be a really complicated industry. And I spent a lot of my career fighting against that complexity. And towards the end of my what I call big corporate phase, so we're talking about maybe 2006 onwards, I started getting really excited by things like Twitter being launched and Facebook coming of age and LinkedIn and the sudden accessibility of video. Whereas before, you might have, if you wanted to make a video, you'd have to hire a film crew to come in and do it for you. And I was wanting to get involved in more of this digital stuff. And the corporate sort of, institution was just really quite scared of this digital development and just looked at it with a bit of suspicion. And I said, well, we don't really want to get involved in that. We might make mistakes. We might break the compliance rules. We might inadvertently end up upsetting somebody. So eventually I decided to leave and set up my own consultancy to effectively work with people who did get excited about digital and about social media and about content marketing. And really for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been a marketing consultant and speaker, helping people do two things. First of all, keep marketing simple, because that has always been in my DNA. And secondly, putting together marketing strategies. Now, before everybody dives for cover, when I say the strategy word, yes, strategy is one of those words that scares people, but it's very important to have a strategy before you do any form of marketing. And I think that sadly, these days, a lot of companies dive straight into the tactics of marketing, and that is advertising or promotion or content or some sort of digital campaign without actually doing the strategy. And I try to help people to do that. So that's the potted history in 4 minutes 45 seconds.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. That was very concise. I like it. Let's say you sort of hit on 2 points there. One that you said, obviously, certainly in the financial sector, moving towards the digital marketing world was quite scary. And then you discussed the fact that now companies don't really go for the strategy outlook. They tend to dive right into, dare I say it, the techniques without having that strategy. Is that a complete reversal of how it used to be there? Because obviously when this was all taking off and booming, there was a lot of people that just, there was a lot of people not sure about it. Why do I need to do SEO? I'm not sure about SEO. What's the real value of it, for example? Now it's a case of we can't get enough of it. We want to grab the new latest thing as quickly as we possibly can and shake it until all the money falls out. Is there a case of that everything's really really turned upside down in terms of outlook now when it comes to marketing / digital marketing?
It's a very interesting question, and I suspect that if I really had a close look back in time, I think it's probably always been the case that we've wanted to dive into the tactics before we've done the strategy, except that 25 years ago, the tactics were printed adverts or TV adverts or putting leaflets through people's doors or stuff like that, or maybe phoning them up, telemarketing, that sort of thing. Nowadays, of course, we've got all this fabulous technology. We've got apps, we've got videos, we've got stuff on screens. And I just think there's so many more toys now that we can play with tactically that it probably seems more like today we dive into the tactics. I just suspect that it's always been the case. It's just that there's now more diversions. I mean, I'm the same. I mean, I preach, do the strategy. But as soon as I hear about a new app or something like that, I'll probably go and, I mean, I was listening to Brian Fanzo's podcast yesterday, and he was going on about this new app called TikTok, which I actually believe is a revamp of an earlier, was it Musical.ly or something like that? So, of course, what did I do? I go straight into my iPhone, into the App Store, download TikTok and start messing about with it. And, I would still have to sit back and say, well, there's no point playing with this app other than to see what it does and to associate and get myself associated with it, unless I've actually worked out whether it applies to my market and my customers and the problems that they have. So I just think there are many, many more shiny toys available for us now, and those shiny toys can be distractions unless we actually do the strategy.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of those things that I've always said, which is a case of, I get people coming up to me saying, I need to do YouTube videos. Yep. For example, I'm throwing out, I need to do YouTube videos. And you ask them the question why, and they say, well, I went to a conference, I went to a seminar, and they said, do YouTube videos. And I said, well, that's awfully well and good, but does it apply to your audience? Is your audience on YouTube? Are they using YouTube? Is that where that you're going to find that audience? And it's the case. We do hear that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case in point. I was on Twitter a few weeks ago, and actually an old colleague of mine I used to work with a long time ago posted a tweet, and the tweet said something like, if you were starting a marketing department from scratch, what's the first thing that you would invest in? Now, I immediately started to think about typing an answer, but then I realized that I think there was already about 20 answers in his thread. So I clicked into the thread and started going down them. The first one said, invest in video recording equipment, because video is the most powerful means of conversation these days. And the second tweet said probably, build yourself an email list. You need to have your own list to get engagement with the customer. Now, both video and email are absolutely fabulous and legitimate means of marketing communications, but they're tactics. And they are not the things that you invest in first when you start a marketing department. Now, arguably, the first thing you should invest in is people, but we'll pass on that. But the first thing you should invest in is analysis of your target market, or even decide on your target market and work out what their problems are, and then build your offer. And then once you've done that, then you can start communicating with people via video and building email lists. But those aren't the first things that you do. And when I scrolled down that Twitter, as I said, there was about 20 answers. All of the answers were tactics. None of them said, do the work about your customer first. And I found that quite surprising, but also quite sad, because again, I think we have been seduced by all this, all these shiny toys, and we just need to say, shiny toys, wait for a minute, let's go away and do the work, and then we'll come back and play with you later.
We do have a lot of shiny toys nowadays, and there are a lot more shiny toys than we ever had before, necessarily in the past. Does that now take marketing into something that is now overly complicated? You talked before about how marketing should be simple, and I 100% agree with that, and we agree with each other on that point, and we have done in the past. But is it the case of the new toys that have made marketing more complicated than it was before?
I think that they will do, if you don't have the foundations in place that we've discussed. I mean, again, if you think about digital marketing is now available to everybody. Whereas, 20 years ago when I started doing marketing, I was working for companies and we were spending hundreds of thousands of pounds, millions of pounds on advertising campaigns. And, even today, small companies, coffee shops, small agencies in towns and, any sort of local business isn't going to be able to spend millions and millions of pounds on advertising or designing content or whatever it is. But the great thing is these days they don't need to. Here's an example. One of the best marketing campaigns I was ever involved with was actually a DVD that we recorded as a company and we mailed it out, as in snail mail, out to a load of financial advisors. So imagine we had to get the film crew in, and they of course had all the lights and gigantic cameras and lots of wires and those circular silvery things that bounce light about. we filmed the shots and we had all sorts of people involved, and then they took it away and edited it, and then they produce the actual DVD itself, and they had to produce 30,000 DVDs. We had to print a nice little glossy pocket for the DVD to actually go into, and then there was a glossy brochure that the pocket and the DVD went into, which explained what it all was, and then all of that went into an envelope, and then 30,000 of these envelopes got posted out first class. The whole thing cost about £75,000. Now, there's no way that the majority of small businesses would be able to spend that sort of money on marketing. But today, you wouldn't do that. You could record that video yourself on an iPhone, and it would probably be, much, much more high quality than that one we did 15 years ago. You would probably upload it to something like YouTube or Vimeo, and then you would email the link to 30,000 people if you had 30,000 people on your list. So the total cost of it could be a couple of £100 as opposed to hundreds of thousands of pounds. So digital marketing has made marketing available to many, many more people without the need to have the deep pockets. But the consequence of that availability is that, again, people don't really know where to start. Should I pick up the video? Should I pick up the email? Should I do a website? Should I do a vlog? Should we do webinars? And I think that just the accessibility creates the complexity, because we haven't really got the roadmap that tells us what the best thing to do is. And if you then almost like say stop, take a deep breath, go right back to first principles. And the first principles of marketing always are: who's your customer? Work out what their problem is. Work out what your solution to their problem is, and that's your product or service. And build an offer around the answer to those three questions, whatever the product is, whatever the service is, how much it costs. And then set yourself some goals, like I want to make £1 million worth of profit, or I want to get 100 people on my list, or I want to have a webinar with 1,000 people. Whatever it is, have a goal. And once you've got that offer and that goal nailed down, that's effectively a strategy. Let's not even call it a strategy. Let's just call it the foundation or the plan. Then you can start deciding, how do we communicate? And if you know who your customer is, if you know who your target customer is, then it sort of becomes a bit easier to work out which are the ways to communicate. So I don't know, if you work out that your target market are over 60s, then it's very unlikely that you're going to want to start using Snapchat to talk to them. Now, there'll be a few people over 60 on Snapchat, undoubtedly, but the majority of your audience won't be on Snapchat. And, if video is the way to communicate, and it highly likely is, there may be places where your target market hang out where you'll go, and there'll be places where they won't hang out, so you won't go there. So I think that, again, it might seem a little bit boring, but if you do that strategy stuff first, a lot of the confusion about what to use and which of the massive array of shiny toys that are available to us now, it sort of melts away because you know who you're talking to, and therefore you know how you want to talk to them.
You've got so many small business owners out there that are being much like that tweet that you saw on Twitter. You know, someone asking, how do I start a marketing department? You've got so many business owners calling out, yelling, I need to do my digital marketing. I need to market my business. I want to do it online and digitally. And rather than people yelling back at them or tweeting back at them, yelling back at them, well, you need to take a step back and look at your target audience. All they're getting in return, much like the tweet you were talking about, is you should do video, you should do YouTube, you should do Twitter, you should do Facebook. Facebook Live is amazing, you know, isn't it nice and new and shiny? That kind of thing. And actually, to take that step back and look at your audience is the first thing of reducing your workload. It's being able to focus and target to an actual key audience, which are going to be the ones which create you orders. They're going to be the ones that create you revenue at the end of the day. So how do people take that step back? How should they then look at their audience? Who should they be asking? Should they be asking people that they've already worked with? How should they take that step back?
Yeah, I think it needs a lot of discipline. And let's face it, if you're not a marketer by trade or marketer by education, then it's very easy to be seduced by people tweeting at you and saying you've got to do video, you've got to do that. Ideally, get some training or read up on it. I mean, there are loads of books out there. Listen to this podcast, listen to my podcast, learn a little bit about the other parts of marketing. And I think that one of the biggest problems that not digital marketing per se, but the way that the internet has blown up, is that I think that it's created the perception that marketing is just the communications bit, whether it's digital or, you know, some people still do put things on printed page. But let's just say the majority of people see marketing these days, and even people who work in marketing, sadly, see it as just the communications bit. Now, if you went to a university and did an MBA in marketing or a degree in marketing, or even if you picked up an academic textbook, they would talk about a lot more. Marketing is also about customer orientation. It's about market segmentation. It's about targeting. It's about positioning. It's about putting together the strategic goals. It's then about your product, your price, the promotion, which is the communication bit, and the sales. And sometimes you add people and customer service on top of that as well. So marketing actually is a vast discipline. So I think the first stage is to acknowledge that it isn't just about the communication, and to sit back and start thinking about, okay, how can I learn more about the other parts of marketing? And you could spend a long time reading up on this, going on a course, going to university, whatever it might be. I try to help people by boiling it down into those two other things that you've got to do before you start thinking about the communications element. The first thing is build your offer, which means you've got to answer those three questions. Who's my customer? And I mean, if you're opening a cake shop in Edinburgh, then you're not going to be interested in what people in San Francisco think of your cakes, unless, of course, you're wanting to get people from San Francisco to fly over to Edinburgh specifically to visit your shop, which is a little unlikely. But you're going to want to listen to the people in Edinburgh who like cakes, find out what they want, and put something together product-wise, i.e. cakes, which are the most delicious cakes they've ever eaten, and they're not so expensive that they get put off. So it's understanding that local customer. Then the second question is, what's their problem? What's their need? And if we stay with the cake shop analogy, they're hungry, they want a sugar fix, they want icing, they want sponge, whatever it is. And your solution to their problem need is your fabulous cakes that don't cost the earth, but the most delicious cakes you've ever had in Edinburgh. And I guess the third question is, how do you do it better and different to everybody else? Well, of course, yours will be the most delicious ones because you'll use a special recipe, and it's the only cake in the whole of Edinburgh that actually uses proper fruit. I don't know. I'm being a bit. I'm losing my own example here, but you get the idea. If you answer those three questions: who's the customer? What's their need? What's their problem? How do you solve their problem better than anybody else? Then that's your offer. And by answering those questions about how do you do it better, you might take into account how much to charge and all of that. You've got those three questions answered. Then you set yourself a goal. That's the second part. So you've got your offer, and then set yourself a goal. I want to generate X amount of revenue. I want to generate X amount of profit. I want to have X amount of customers. That's your strategy. Then you can start thinking about doing the digital communication. So I suppose to answer the question you asked about 25 minutes ago, if you need to take a step back and say, before I'm going to play with any of these shiny toys, I'm going to work out what my offer is, set myself some goals, and then use digital marketing to communicate that offer to my customers and help myself achieve those goals over the time scale that I've set for myself.
Absolutely. And that is a really key set of actions to take. And you're absolutely right. These tools and these shiny new things, they're all just communications platform. They are the latter part of that journey in terms of marketing your business. So taking that step and doing that research, doing that simply, it doesn't have to be as in-depth as we've probably made it out there, but just asking yourself a very few, certainly if you're a small business, asking yourself a very few small set of questions of yourself and asking them to other people and your current customers and your current clients and people that you think will be interested in your product can really help focus and calm and narrow the mind quite considerably. I want to bring you back to a conversation that we've had previously, which is about where marketing and digital marketing sits now, because we still refer to it, as you rightly said, we still refer to it as digital marketing, but it's almost as if it's a separate entity from standard traditional marketing. So does that make marketing just print and newspaper adverts and radio and TV? I suppose TV would still fall under marketing, even though that's moving into a digital area now. But, there's not, surely in this day and age, there's now not these two succinct separate entities of digital marketing and marketing, is there?
I don't think there is. And for a long time, I've actually got wound up by the title digital marketing. And, if I ever see an advert for a company that's saying we're looking for a digital marketing manager, then I've always got a bit grumpy about that and said, well, how can you have decided that your platform is digital if you've not done the research? But that's me getting a little bit grumpy. But I've always been, I guess maybe because I'm on a bit of an old git and I've been around for a while, and I was sort of classically trained as a marketeer. I just believe marketing is marketing. Marketing is working out who your customers are and building an offer for them, setting yourself some goals, and then communicating with those customers. Now, in fairness, in the past, before digital, the communications was printed, it was TV, it might have been radio, dropping leaflets through people's letterboxes, advertising in magazines, that sort of thing. Digital marketing should be the same. It should be working out who your customer is, building an offer, setting yourself some goals, and then communicating with them digitally. But I do sometimes think that digital marketing, again, is just a proxy for digital communications. So when I do see people advertise for digital marketing managers, I do wonder whether they're just after somebody who's good at playing with the shiny toys, and somebody else is doing all the other strategic type of things in the background. But it's interesting, ultimately I would like to say, let's not differentiate between digital and traditional. And let's face it, is there anything really that you could call traditional? I mean, even posters on the side of bus stops these days are digital, aren't they? They light up. They're not actually printed, and even advertising billboards on the side of buildings tend to be digital now. So maybe we have got to the stage where we can get rid of the word digital and everybody can just be marketing people again. But it's interesting. I had this conversation with a guy who used to be the head of digital marketing at Microsoft a long time ago, and he did say something very profound, and I'm going to nick it. But what he said is, in a bit of a way that, if I go back to the conversation we had right at the start of the podcast when I said that I was a member of a financial services company, and they were quite frightened about digital technology. They thought that it might create a compliance issue, or they might end up breaking some advertising rules. This guy did say something profound. He says, sometimes in an organization that is genuinely rooted in tradition, it's often a good idea to have that digital word sort of spelled out either in the department's name or in the title of the person running it, digital marketing manager, head of digital marketing, whatever it is, to actually highlight the fact that this is change that needs to take place. Now, if I think back to the days when I was getting frustrated, we didn't have a digital marketing manager or a digital marketing department. It was just the marketing department. I was the marketing director. And I was getting frustrated because I couldn't force through these new technologies. Maybe in hindsight, if I'd thought back and said, look, this is a massive change, we actually need to create this role, this digital marketing guy, to actually allow the company to make that change happen and for them to be more confident about it, maybe I would never have got frustrated and left, and I would never be as happy as I am now. But I think that digital is still important in the more traditional industries that maybe haven't made as massive a change. Maybe it's still a way of signposting the fact that you can't avoid it in the world that we live in now.
No, absolutely, and it's interesting because we still do, like we say, we still do call it marketing and digital marketing at the moment, and it's interesting how much now, certainly as I've progressed in my own career as a quote unquote digital marketer, how much I am now working within traditional realms, originally traditional realms, because the combination of the two always ends up being a better campaign. If you're able to have those different touch points in a digital world and a real life physical world, like you're talking about, on digital screens, on the sides of buses, on trains, things like that, all those different touch points create a better campaign at the end of the day. And sometimes, although I understand the point of, we have to have this digital marketing role in order to show that we are going to change and move in this direction, sometimes having that separation means conflicting, unless you work together very, very closely, can mean you can have conflicting viewpoints rather than tying everything in a really nice bow. I've got one last question that I want to fire at you. If a small business owner was to come up to you now and say, Roger, I need your help. I need your words and pearls of wisdom that you've taken with you across the world at international conferences and events and spoken to thousands and thousands of people. And they grasp off your every word. I need one tip, one piece of advice to move my digital marketing forward and start, create a spark for my small little cake shop in Edinburgh. What would that tip, hint be now at this day and age?
It's probably what I would have said 10 years ago. Marketing is a deep, almost obsessive understanding of your customer. Do that first, and then you can play with all the shiny toys that you want, because if you've done that bit first and you truly understand your customer, what makes them tick, how they talk, the language they use, then you'll be able to communicate with them your offer and get them to engage with you and get them to know you and get them to like you enough to do business with you, because you'll understand them and you'll talk their language and you'll give them a product or service that they actually want to buy. But if you don't have that understanding, that deep obsessive understanding of your customer, then it's likely that the product you put together won't appeal to them, and therefore any communication that you fire at them is likely to misfire, or worse, it might even annoy them. And then if you don't have that deep understanding of the customers, then it's likely, unfortunately, that your business will fail.
That's a really, I mean, it harps back to everything that we talked about today. Is a really good piece of advice to take, like say, to take that step back rather than focusing on those shiny toys, which sometimes we're all inept to do. You know, we all do. We all think about it because that's what is barked at us from here, there, and everywhere. To take that step back and look at the audience, to look at your target market is so crucially important. And if you are listening and you are a small business, I do recommend that you heed those words, because it will make, ultimately, it will make your life easier. Because I know I speak to a lot of small business owners that just say, well, I've got to do, you know, I'm told to do this, and I'm told to do Facebook organically, and I'm told to make a Facebook group because someone said the Facebook algorithm changed, and I was told to get on Snapchat because everyone that's 13 and over is on Snapchat, and I was told to go on Instagram because everyone 13 and over as well is on Instagram, so I need to hit them there. They feel so overwhelmed. And if you take that step back and you think about your audience and where they are, then it can do miracles for you. And sometimes focusing on those channels, focusing on the meeting that need and requirement can make your life a whole lot easier and a whole lot more profitable at the end of the day. Roger, I want you to tell everybody what you are up to at the moment, where they can find you, where they can, are you speaking anywhere in the near future? Where's your podcast at? Tell them what you're up to.
Right. My website is dead easy. It's Roger Edwards, and that's Roger. I don't have a D in my name. RogerEdwards.co.uk. On that website, you can find my podcast, the Marketing and Finance Podcast. And Tom, you've been a guest on that show recently. I also do vlogs and videos on there too. And probably the other place to find me is on Twitter, Roger_Edwards on Twitter. But just tweet me, drop me a line via the website. Always happy to talk about strategy without using the strategy word. Always happy to talk about how to keep things simple. I'm more than happy to talk at events on this topic. I had an incredible year last year. I travelled around many Eastern European countries: Serbia, Montenegro, Romania, Macedonia, Czech Republic. Also did a few big gigs in the United Kingdom as well. So if you haven't heard me talk about keeping marketing simple, then I'd absolutely love to come and talk to you on either at your event or in person.
And I really do recommend that you go and follow Roger, because he's some of the stuff that he talks about, his podcast in particular, is absolutely amazing and incredible. I absolutely love it. And I was blessed, is how I put it. I was blessed to be invited on to speak. So thank you so much. And thank you for joining me on the Digital Marketing Punkcast today as well.
It was an absolute pleasure to be a punk for the afternoon. Cheers, Tom.
Thank you so much. So the fantastic Roger Edwards there, talking all about marketing. I really thought that was an important thing to do. It was a brief introduction into the world of marketing. If you'd never heard of the term marketing before, you didn't know where to start, you have a business, you have a blog, you have something which you need to get out there in front of the people, it's important to remember what you do marketing for and how you should be thinking about it on a broader, top level way of thinking. Roger has a beautiful way of sort of putting things, which I think is fantastic. I loved having a chat with him. It was really awesome to have him on. I'm going to apologize profusely to him now and say I'm sorry for not releasing this podcast sooner, because I know we did the interview such a long time ago. But thank you so much for for Roger coming on the show. I would love to hear your questions and your queries and your feedback about the show. So don't forget, if you can get in touch, you can get in touch with the Punkcast by emailing us at punkcast@dmpunk.co.uk. Yes, the email address has changed. Also, all the social media accounts have changed as well. So keep in mind, if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/IamDMPunk, all one word. On Twitter with at IamDMPunk, on Instagram at IamDMPunk as well. Also, you can connect with me on LinkedIn by searching for Digital Marketing Punk. It would be great, if you haven't done so already, for you to subscribe to the Digital Marketing Punkcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm sure you will enjoy subsequent episodes. So if you want and you've liked the show, you can help me out and show your appreciation by giving us a 5-star review on iTunes. I hope you will join me on the next episode, which I will assure you will be sooner than the last time I said this. I hope you will join me on the next episode of the Digital Marketing Punkcast. Thank you very much.